I think I saw you guys a couple years ago now, it has been. Florida became my home in 2002 when I fell in love with Tom Lee, and all of you who know him better than I do even, actually, because you had him in your life longer than I did. And so we were in Melbourne, but we were also up here and back and forth, and so filled with great gratitude when Rose said, "Why don't you come down?" And I thought, oh yeah, that's right, I'm not doing anything on Sundays anymore. Because other people do stuff on Sundays, and so I'm trying to figure out how do we fill that need besides Sunday morning. And so it's in process. We started a ministry called Abana in 2007. Tom and I graduated in 2006, and so at that time, the association, which is now Worldwide Ministries, allowed you to start your own 501c3s, and so we decided that we would choose Abana as the name. And first of all, because nobody ever pronounced it correctly, so then you get the opportunity to talk about it. They're like, what, how do you say that? And it's Abana. It's the name of the river in Damascus, even still today. And what it means in Hebrew is constantly renewing. And metaphysically, it's interpreted then as permanent and enduring. And we thought, yes, ministry, yes, like you have here, is permanent and enduring and constantly renewing, right? Because you come from the foundation that you've all created here. And yet then when something new comes up, like the gathering that you have is a new program, and things then that surface that pull on your consciousness or your soul, we get to bring in. And so now, what will that look like? I'm sitting in the curiosity. That was what I was advised to do. I said, what does that mean? Don't do anything. Oh, okay. So every day, curious, asking what? Because we know when we come from the truth, which is what we all know here, and then life throws us a curveball or a fastball or whatever it is that we might somehow rattle us a little bit, what do you go back to? And so as I've been talking with Rose, you already know those things. So we go back to love of self, love of God, love of self, and then love of others. And so when we were talking, what will I talk about? I said, well, why don't we talk about love in a way that we live? So living as love means that it's a verb because it's an action word. And it starts with ourselves, only second to starting with the love of God. And that's what you guys sang about today, right? Imagine that as we pray, we can get ourselves so out of whatever's out here into the truth of who we are. I always say it's that little still small voice down in here, the place, if you can think of where the caterpillar affixes itself to then allow itself to be in the goo and in the chrysalis before the wings are formed. So every time you go into meditation, who knows what kind of wings you're springing, right, when you go forth. So take the time, what I've learned over the last couple of years, especially when the love of your life is gone in a moment. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's right, I'm supposed to love myself. Oh, okay. How do you do that? How do you do that when you don't know what's next? And so that's what it's about, staying in the truth and knowing. So there's two great commandments that we've all heard about, no matter what other Christian practice we might have come from. And what we know is that the truth of the teachings come from the Old Testament. And that's where in Deuteronomy it was said, and I'm going to read it, it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." But what we focus on in Unity is the New Testament as well. And people will say, so wait, what's that church you go to? That one with like the wings on it, you know? And I'll say, we talk about how Jesus lived. Just one of the many way showers, right, in the whole world. Many, many paths to God. So when we take apart Scripture, because that's what we do metaphysically, what's underneath it? What does it mean? We know that Israel means spiritual consciousness. that here means look deeper. So we could read this scripture as, I'm looking deeper through my spiritual consciousness. So that's what happens when as a little Catholic girl, I grew up and I thought, what do all those and thems and theys mean? It gives you kind of like a peanut butter tongue, right? And you don't really know, like, wait, what? And so here, look deeper into your spiritual consciousness. Even when we say, in my soul goes deeper into my God. It's the God of your understanding. It's the highest consciousness within you. It's the truth of you. And nobody is the boss of that but you. Nobody. Lord your God means the activity inside of us. So, here the activity inside of us that we could go deeper into our spiritual consciousness to know, to love God first. And we love God first because we're born in the image and after the likeness of all that is great, all that is good, all that is perfect, all that is beautiful. Today happens to be Redhead Day. It's one of 3 days. Most of you people only get 1 day. We got 3 this year. I'm not really sure why. I think it came out of England. And so we get to celebrate ourselves in a way that maybe no one else does. So that when our world gets rocked or our world is full of joy, we go back to center and remember, oh yes, that's right. Love God, love myself, and then love others. So how do you love yourself? You can eat right, that always helps. Exercise, pray. Pray the way you know how to pray. Meditate the way you know how to meditate. Walk, run, bicycle, whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself out of the external worldly things, even though you may be outside, walking in nature or taking a swim, something to that effect. So love God, love ourselves, and love our neighbor. How do you love your neighbor when they're sitting next to you and you're thinking, can't do it today, and Oprah would say, they're always cleverly disguised as, and I can't say the word here, but, how do you do it? Because we remember each of us born in the image and after the likeness. So we're all it. And sometimes you love everyone. It doesn't mean you invite them to your house for dinner or to go, to a movie or whatever. However, when something comes up, maybe that's a little crinkly for you and you're like, like that. And before you go into a judgment, then you say, what am I supposed to be looking at? What is this for me? Because we are gifts for each other. Are we willing to unwrap them? Especially when you're like, it smells, or I don't really like the color of the package, or whatever it is. Because really, as we unpack this spirituality, because unity isn't a religion, it's a spirituality, it's a way of living, it's a journey, it's not something that you just do on Sunday. How do you live it? How do you know that no matter what happens, God is always good? That everything happens for a reason, and the reason is to support us. Now, it might take you might have to call Rose or Dixie or someone and say, okay, I'm not believing this today, help me, I'm having trouble with this. That's all right, because as long as we can do this, whether you have beautiful freckles or not, as long as you can do this to yourselves, then you know that there's going to be some times where our humanness slides in, and our ego, which attempts to try to edge God out, ego. So we go back to knowing. Course of Miracles tells us everything is an action of love or a call for love. And so it helps us even when we're reading the paper and you see one thing after another, and it's like, is there anything good? Yes, everything is good. And did God cause it? No, but is God in the middle of everything? Absolutely. Because of how many people are in the middle of it all. So can we allow all of that good expression to come out of us? And how do you stay centered in it? How do you put God first? So you have to remember and know that God is good, and God is love, and God is great, unchangeable, always and forever. So that gives us a sense of security, doesn't it? If we're looking for a new job, or we may be having a health challenge, or your windshield got cracked on the way down here, which it didn't this time for me, but the last time it did. How do you look at all of those things as a blessing? For me, I've been able to use it all to figure out how to stay present. Because if I'm thinking about the past, it's going to just keep me lulled or in the why, possibly a victim. If I'm going into the future, there's the anxiety. It's not even great anticipation. It's just, I don't know, or the shift that happens in us when, you have to be careful how you hear that. The I don't know. So if we stay present, knowing that God is going to take care of all that in front of us, doesn't mean we don't do our work. We, of course, always do the work. And, of course, we can't change anything that already happened. But we can have smiles and joys and great, great gratitude for all of that has gone before us, just like we do here in this church, right? The reason you are as great as you are today is because you have stood and gone through everything that you've done. It's a reflection of our life as well. So how do you get to be loving every day? Before you get out of bed, I hope what you'll do is, stay for a moment and think, how will I be loved today? Because that's our job, be love expressing. And in that word love, you can either put God or spirit, great universe, because they're all interchangeable. And we get to choose. That's the greatest thing about unity. How will you choose to be the greatest expression of you? Our mind, with a small m, is often confused then possibly about some of the other things in the world, influenced. But our capital M mind, the divine mind, tells us that it's all good. And maybe we just need to change the perspective. Or we need to call for prayer, or we need to just yell and scream out in the woods and say whatever words you might want to say, because they're just words. However, when we're talking to ourselves, the one who's listening that's most important is you. Your subconscious. And so if you're saying every day, oh, I wish I had straight hair, I wish I had contacts, well, then get your hair straightened, Therese, and get rid of your glasses, or whatever it is that you might be saying to yourself, because my subconscious is listening. And then forming its own little attitude of how it is you're going to be expressing today. Have you ever gone out less than how you wanted to in the day? Did you come across maybe to somebody, not this morning possibly, but you've come across a little different than how you might have wanted to? And so you take a moment and you don't beat yourself up. You just go, okay, wait a minute. Have I loved myself today? No wonder. I was telling Rose, I saw something on one of the many Facebook things that said, of course everyone can't love you. Most people don't love themselves. Duh. I could hear my father going, well, duh, Therese Ann, because as a little Catholic girl, you grow up, you have two names, Therese Ann. I could hear him saying with the whole, sassiness of his little self that he had, duh, and I'm like, oh. So don't look outside yourself for the love that you need. That's a tough one. So every day, figure out all the glorious, grateful things before you go to bed. Are you writing your gratitude journal? All the great things that you are. So, and then how do you keep loving this neighbor? I mean, do you love all your neighbors, or is it only the people in the church, but you only like them while they're here and not outside the restaurant? When you see them in, the rest of the time you're like this, walking like, I don't know who you are. How do you do it? And then how do you know the truth of who you are, that even those we don't meet could be the angel that was sent to you, right? Because we never know. So there's no qualifiers in unity, and we don't should on ourselves either. So you're always loving, and again, doesn't mean they have to come over for lunch or breakfast or any of that. But what we want to know is, how are you living what you know to be true each day? Because we can be up here on Sunday and have great fun, but how are you applying it so that every day the consciousness that you've raised in yourself, it makes your life great, no matter what happens? People say that to me, so how are you still standing? Or wait, what? You're not at church anymore? No, I'm not doing church. What are you going to do? I don't know. Who knows? God. Right? Because really, and if you think you know, Dixie, that's great. Thanks a lot. However, she can't really know, because I don't know, because I haven't been told yet. And yet, what I ask of my prayer partners is, will you hold the high watch for me? Someone said to me, well, let me buy your lunch now that you're unemployed. I said, Oh no, I work for God. I'm never unemployed. I just switched jobs, right? And so please don't take your, and it's a really good friend of mine up in Jacksonville. I said, but do you see those words then share in the energy around us? And I feel like, she's going to buy me lunch because I'm a loser, because or whatever my mind's going to make up. When in fact, so she said, oh, okay. I said, so you can take me to lunch this time. I'll take you to lunch next week. And so it's like you go on a date, or something. And with none of those things that have to happen afterwards. It's just a fun date. And so this way then, but our consciousness both raised. Oh, it took some a little while. That's all right. And I'm not speaking from experience, but, I remember. And so she raises up her thought of not having to worry about Therese, and then I don't have to worry that she's worrying about Therese. It makes sense? So you worry about you, I'll worry about me, and then really don't even worry because God's in charge. And if we're real attached to the script of what we thought it looked like, I hope you realize then that at some point, God's going to laugh, and I hope you laugh as well. And it may be laughing through tears, but that's all right. So how are you living every day as love? God is your source. God is my power, my love, my joy. So when I'm not feeling those things, I think, oh, well, all right, so what am I not doing for myself? And I'm sure some people might observe me as I'm walking through one of the many stores and think, oh, that girl's talking to herself again. Because I'm trying to see the love in the person who has 100 items in the 10 checkout lane, right? Because I don't see the love at all. All I see is their basket of things. Like, okay, maybe they don't know how to count. I don't know. Because I don't want to be critical, but I'm thinking, okay, all right, God, there's some message in here, and so I'm just going to bless this person. And so love isn't blind. What love is able to do for us. And, and it's a confusing word, isn't it? Because I love you, and I love my grandchildren, and I love pizza. Okay, what is that all about? It's one word. And so think about the love we're talking about of self-love with the capital L. Okay, and so another way to think about the word love is living our values every day, L-O-V-E. So you know the things that you value. Live them every day. And then if you're doing that and you're on purpose, then of course you're living as love. Because I'm going to look way different than someone else looks when we do that. And that's why the world is great outside of our own little, maybe sometimes our own little cocoons. And you probably have noticed the love that you give sometimes reflects the love that you get back. But have you ever had an opportunity to give love and there was nothing returned? It's okay. Because the more that you're giving the love to this person, whatever that, and use your healthy boundaries, at some point, then they may realize themselves that they're lovable. And then they're able to give the love. So we don't do it to get something back. We do it because that's who we are. We are born in the image and after the likeness of God, so we have to be love expressing. We just get to choose what kind of shoes to wear, how to wear our hair, what tie we might wear, whatever it is, to be that package every day for someone as we meet them. So what I know is that as we see with our eye of faith, we get to see more of what love is, because we also sometimes get to see less of what isn't loving and just think, okay, that's going to pass for a moment. That person's tone of voice, or the fact that they cut me off on the highway, or they couldn't count in the line, whatever it is. You just, you're constantly knowing that as you are love, then you can be loving. Eric Butterworth, who was one of our early authors here in Unity and had a big church in New York, wrote many, many books. One is Discover the Power Within, and that changes your life, and maybe that's one of the ones we'll teach. He says that love is the process through which you touch and express your own deeper nature. And so Rose was saying that I'm Therese and there's no one like me. Of course, because there's not a Dixie, right? There's not another Rose. There's not another Leslie. There can't be. And so how are you going to decide today to be you expressing? So they think, wow, that person really is on fire or full of something, and they might come up to you and say, because they're attracted to your light, so tell me, what are you doing? Did you lose weight? Did you, are you in love? Did you, what's happening? And you just smile and say, oh, life is good. But you know that you've done your work every day to stay centered. Because as we spend more of our love outside of us, then what happens is it increases the consciousness, as it's done here in this church, and also increases it outside of us in the world. Kind of like how they'll say, go ahead and spend some money because it helps the economy. Well, spend your love. Spend your love. And without any expectations of what you might get back. And that's a tough one, I know, to learn. I'm still learning it at 56. Because, when you're little, of course, you're supposed to, at least in my little life, I learned to always love everybody else first. And so I'm unlearning that. And I'm spending time with Therese and figuring out what does that mean so that when I am outside of my little abode, then I am so loving. People are like, wow, what is she on? Like when Harry met Sally, I'll have what she's having. It happens, and people are going to want to be in your life, and people are going to be drawn to your light because you are living the love that you are. So let me read you a paraphrased 1 Corinthians. If I have the language perfectly and speak like a native and have not God's love for them, I am nothing. If I have diplomas and degrees and know all the up-to-date methods and have not God's touch of understanding love, I am nothing. If I am able to argue successfully against the strange religious rituals of people and make fools of them and have not God's wooing note, I am nothing. If I have all the faith and all the great ideals and magnificent plans and not God's love that serves and gives and desires to do more, that desires to pray, I am nothing. If I give my clothes and my money to them and have not God's love for them, I am nothing. If I surrender all prospects, leave home and friends, make the sacrifices of a missionary career, and turn sour and selfish amid the daily annoyances and slights of a missionary life, and have not the love that yields its rights, its leisures, its pet plans, I am nothing. Virtue has ceased to go out of me. If I can heal all manner of sickness and disease, but wound hearts and hurt feelings for want of God's love that is kind, I am nothing. If I can write articles or publish books that win applause, but fail to transcribe the word of the Lord into the language of love, I am nothing. And so it's about how it is we show up. And in order to show up living as love, we do our work. We listen to the tapes maybe from Sunday. If you're having a bad Wednesday, go back to the tape. Wait, what was I supposed to do? You call for prayer. You meditate. You write your gratitude journal. And then what happens is love as you. And I'm grateful for the love that I know that you all are for my dear beloved friend Rose and Reverend Rose, excuse me. Thank you. I am grateful.